my haters out, they was just leaving. Can't be nobody else, I'ma be myself. So they gon' have to watch me treat myself. You make it look good. Watch yourself, huh? Yeah, you make it look good. Don't let it watch yourself, huh? Cause you make it look good. You make it look good. Watch yourself, huh? Yeah, you make it look good. Don't let it watch yourself, huh? Cause you make it look good. Watch yourself, huh? You make it look good. You make it look good. Watch yourself, huh? Yeah, you make it look good. Don't let it watch yourself, huh? Cause you make it look good. Watch this.
Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Hello to you. It's your old pal Jake here, and I'm just I'm gonna let you know what's up. I'm not entirely sure how regular a thing this is going to be, but it's going to be a little bit of a different stream this time around. I'm doing both twofer Tuesday streams, I think, right now. Just back to back. And I won't be heartbroken if you don't stick around for the whole thing. It's a marathon. Got a lot of stuff. Normally, when we have the description so loaded with clips, it's with the understanding we won't necessarily use all of them. It's just where the information is coming from. In this case, nuh-uh. Just want to go through the entirety of it and pretty much study with you guys. Get familiar with the recent happenings. A lot of these are stuff you guys suggested that I said I would watch over the last couple of days. And a lot of them are just things I came across as a result of trying to keep up with current events. So why do it differently this time around? Because it's going to take a really long time. And I'm playing around with monetization. I'm trying to get as familiar as I can with all the ways you can turn getting educated into money. Not even necessarily to use it for WYCD. On that note, decent chance that I'm going to play for you guys what the channel members have already seen, which is Pixel Progressives, the most recent thing. Mostly to get your live feedback on, I would say as a commentator, give myself a solid B. But as an animator, I'll be generous and say a C minus. So getting your feedback on that would also be good. So I can approve. Anyway, enough of the preamble. That's what's going on now, you know. Let me say hi to you for a second. Pinkerbell, good to see you. The Anti-Corporatus. Hello. Oh, by the way, Jake, I have news. I think I am this close to landing myself an amazing producer for my show. It's going to be, well, amazing. Hell yes. Hell yeah. You know I'm a fan of producers in general, and certainly of producing. Give me that hot goss. You know the email. It's in, and if you don't have it, you can go to the About section of the YouTube channel and find it. But I want that goss. Who's your producer? How'd you meet up? What's your plan? This kind of thing is fun to do with a friend. I'll say that. And I'll also give you this as I hereby declare it officially, publicly, so I get embarrassed if I don't follow through. We'll get you monetized as fast as possible. I don't know if we're going to devote a ton of time to building up channels past a certain point. But if people are putting out good content, if they're trying their best to be ethical and decent and if they're doing work that we kind of collectively agree needs to be done, we will rush you as fast as possible to the watch hours that are necessary and the subscriber count that is necessary, including, and hear me out on this, anti-corporatist. I'll offer the deal to you. I think first. I don't think I've offered this yet. Maybe I have. I don't know, but I'll offer it to you because it stands nonetheless. I will give you the episodes of Pixel Progressives to play on your channel if you want. And I'll keep the Pixel Progressives within only the channel members area of WYCD. The reason for that being, people will still know where they can see them if they want to watch a cartoon to blow off some steam. But more importantly, you'll gather up watch hours super fast. And it's a way to give you the opportunity to make money without actually having to give you money, because I'm poor. So that offer's there if you want it. But also, if you want to hold off and develop your voice a little bit with no pressure and not as many eyes watching you, that's also fair. Again, you know the email. It's what you can do at WYCDnetwork.com. Write me if you're interested in that. When you start your channel, let me know. Sonia B., good to see you. The anti-corporatist, yeah, because you have to get those watch hours, that subscriber count, so you can stream. Until then, I guess I'll do Twitch and post videos. I don't know, but yeah, I'll have to talk to my super producer. Very cool. Yeah, keep it in mind. It's a way to get content to rack up your watch hours and possibly your subscriber count for free. Plus, don't think it's me doing you like charity. It's not at all. I would be also essentially getting free advertising for my own channel. I'll pop a WYCD on there if you want. Pinkerbell, that video killed me. I'm dead. All right, I'm delighted. I'm glad you liked it. There's little things where after watching it, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have changed this, that, or the other thing. And I may still. But to be continued. I want to talk about my girl, Rachel. Very badly. Because she's not... I judge people once they're on the side of good. Once they are clearly trying to make the world a better place, I judge them a hell of a lot less harshly. And so I won't claim that Rachel Maddow is perfect. But by God, occasionally she knocks it out of the park, and she shows us why she is paid what she's paid. And well, I don't think, I don't think we should take food out of anybody's mouth to provide someone with such a paycheck. In a world where such paychecks are provided, she's one of the few that I think has earned it. Yep, the topic of our first segment here is Rachel Maddow. In addition to wanting to generally share the voices that are informing people on cable television, I want to encourage these big networks to do the kinds of things that I think are going to be good for everybody, including just posting their shows on YouTube for free. It's that simple. So with that in mind, one thing MSNBC does is they take their big shows and they take the best parts of those shows and they call them highlights. And they put them online for free. An interesting thing is that this is what pirates used to do and in fact still do on YouTube. But you'll notice something. MSNBC, instead of putting in all this effort to shut down the pirate stations, essentially, what did they do? They just did it better themselves. They put it up for free themselves, understanding that they can passively generate income themselves, just like the pirates were. That is the way to go. I want to encourage that, and I want to point out that Rachel Maddow just nailed it in this segment. Here she is, yesterday's show.
That dynamic that I'm describing at work in the news today, that indication that, for all our faults, we must be doing something right. If even the people who other countries spring from our prisons through diplomatic negotiations nevertheless want to stay here after they are sprung. I feel like that dynamic is It's also a reminder that what we do have in this country is unique. And it's not inevitable. I mean, what sets us apart as a country is losable. It's fragile. It needs protecting. And you can see that in the other headlines in today's news. Headline: threats mount against prosecutors and FBI agents working on Hunter Biden probe. Prosecutors and FBI agents involved in the Hunter Biden investigation have been the targets of threats and harassment, according to government officials and congressional testimony obtained by NBC News. Quote, it's part of a dramatic uptick in threats against FBI agents that has coincided with attacks on the FBI and the Justice Department by congressional Republicans and former President Donald Trump. The threats have prompted the FBI to create a standalone unit to investigate and mitigate them, according to previously unreleased congressional testimony. There's another one. Headline: FBI investigating violent threats against officials in Fulton County, Georgia. In the saga of the multiple criminal trials that are ahead for former president and Republican leading presidential candidate Donald Trump, one major thing we're waiting on right now, could happen at any time, is news on whether the federal judge overseeing Trump's case in D.C., the one about him trying to overturn the election, will that judge grant the prosecutor's request for an order that restricts the kinds of statements that Trump can make about that trial, so as to not prejudice the jury pool, so as not to intimidate witnesses. It's very striking. We're waiting on that order for the judge right now. But, you know, in their request for that order from the judge, prosecutors had to give examples to the court of some of the times that Trump's overheated public statements have led his followers to commit violence or to threaten violence on his behalf. They included in their court filing the recent arrest of a Trump supporter in Texas who called the chambers of the federal judge who was overseeing that trial and threatened to kill the judge because Trump
No, I guess I should let her finish that, huh?
is on trial in her.
Why did they threaten to kill the judge?
And threatened to kill the judge because Trump is on trial in her courtroom.
Stochastic terrorism. That is the word. Stochastic terrorism. The Republicans have engaged in that my whole life. As far as I can tell, conservatives have engaged in that for the entirety of their existence. Please somebody rid me of this meddlesome priest, I think is the line from the Shakespeare play, or whatever the hell. The point is saying, boy, somebody really should do something about these folks. That is the fall of democracy right there, if it goes unanswered. Cannot let them get away with this. Obviously, you can't. Rachel Maddow's nailing it here. I don't have a whole lot to add other than to say that, I mean, I think long-time viewers will appreciate what I'm about to say, or at least be able to predict it. It's good that this is finally playing on cable television. It's good that the people who are comfortable, who don't actually experience any of the frontline things that are necessary for maintaining the lives they live, including the hard work, you know, the scraping of your knuckles against cement as you try to wedge out a broken piece of whatever and replace it, the oil dripping from the car onto your face, the hot stove that cooks the fancy meal, the Republican psychos giving you death threats when you try to hold them accountable for their crimes. Those people should at least be aware that this is happening. And Rachel Maddow is doing a fantastic job of presenting the reality.
I mean, all of these things, the court filing about the potential gag order, the threats to Fulton County officials, the threats to the FBI itself, I mean, these are all just in the past few days. But these headlines are just now the ambient mood of public service in the Trump era of Republican politics. right? It's Fulton County officials being threatened. It's the Fulton County sheriff having to investigate that. Then it's the Fulton County sheriff being threatened and the FBI having to investigate that. Then it's the FBI being threatened, FBI officials and FBI agents themselves being threatened, and the FBI having to investigate that. It's the judge in one of the Trump cases being threatened. It's another judge in another one of the Trump cases being threatened. It's the grand jurors in one of the Trump cases being threatened. It's the prosecutor in one Trump case being threatened. It's the prosecutor in another Trump case being threatened. It's a federal prosecutor in the Hunter Biden investigation getting, quote, such a barrage of credible threats that she had to seek security help from the U.S. Marshals Service. It's public health workers being threatened and harassed. It's the head of the CDC getting death threats. The head of the CDC.
More praise for Rachel Maddow. And again, this is not somebody who I think would enjoy hanging out with your old pal Jake, nor vice versa. But the work she does is good. And here's why. Imagine for a moment this was put together by a team on that had a YouTube channel. It would get a hell of a lot of views. And it would deserve them. She has found a way to, just with this, she's found a way to sum up what is going on, the extent of it. And again, so important, she is presenting it to that middle-of-the-road crowd who normally, when they're watching cable television, they get told, oh, progressives, they're the same thing as MAGA. You know, extremists on both sides. Both sides. We're fair because we say both sides are equally bad, whether it's true or not. See how fair we are? No, she's presenting it to a crowd that very much needs to hear it.
It's the staff of the National Archives being threatened. Sure, why not? Quote, the National Archives has been hit with a wave of threats since the FBI retrieved classified records from Trump's Mar-a-Lago club. It's the IRS being threatened. Quote, IRS launches safety review after right-wing threats. Republicans in Congress repeating baseless claims long made by extremists, experts say, potentially puts federal workers in danger. It's more than a dozen people now federally criminally charged with making threats to election workers all over the country.
Hey, real quick, if you're the kind of filth that does this, if you're the kind of subhuman that threatens election workers, if you're the kind of moron who falls time and time again, withdrawn, we've already talked about this. If you're the kind of asshole, you might not be dumb, but you are an asshole. If you're that kind of person who threatens these people, who tries to get your political way through intimidation, do you ever stop and ask yourself, why is this necessary? Should I get my way if I can only get it by threatening these people? Because I'll tell you, I just about every day want to find the nearest Confederate flag-wearing son of a bee and wrap my hands around their neck, fade them into darkness, and introduce them to the archangels. But I don't. I don't scratch that very itchy itch. And the reason I don't is because it's not right. It's because I shouldn't get my way. The society shouldn't change because I've done that thing. It shouldn't at least change towards the arc that I want it to, because then all bets are off. We're back to those savage times. I don't mean those savage times like the 1800s. I don't mean those savage times like when we were building the pyramids. I mean like when we had to scrap with bears over a carcass. I don't want to go to those times. None of us should. We should be frank about what we're talking about when we're talking about that. With this, changing what elected officials and appointed officials and, the way the government operates based on the threat of violence. If you're the kind of terrible human being that does that, you need to ask yourself, what kind of world am I trying to build? And is this the way it can be built? And if there's even a shred of humanity in you, if there's even a seed of decency that might one day grow into a real human being, the answer is, of course, no. This will not build any society worth having. And it does mean this is a rare time that progressives can feel really good about aggressively stomping this behavior out with the law. And we should encourage the law to do exactly that.
Now it's Republican U.S. Senator, former Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney, telling his biographer about serving members of Congress in both the House and the Senate, confiding in him that they have taken specific votes in Congress that benefited Trump, specifically because they were afraid for their physical safety if they did not.
We're going to jump into that, but I want to talk to the Wicked community for a moment. Looney Tunes 9000, just a quick hello before I go to my bowling league. Thank you very much for the boost to the algorithm, my friend. And break a leg at the bowling league, or, break whatever is desirable to break. Pinkerbell, the National Archives, bullies threatening gigantic nerds. Yeah. Like, it's on the level, says Pinkerbell, of threatening librarians. Absolutely. Just for fun, my question is, how do they keep getting away with it? In my opinion, it's as simple as this. Law enforcement is mostly made up of right-wingers. Right-wingers are told they must worship the rich and protect the rich at all costs. And they are hesitant to bust other right-wingers. Let me ask you something. Forget whether or not you think cops are good or bad. But imagine you're a cop and you come across a black teen ripping on a joint in an area where that's not legal. What would you do? I'll tell you what I'd do. Nothing. I might say, listen, you dumb little... if I can see you doing that, in that very illegal thing, and I've got this badge on that's the equivalent of a bell around a cat's neck, and I'm driving that giant, very much marked car, and I can see you doing that, you're too dumb to do it. So I'm going to confiscate that, and I'm going to do what you were doing with it, but discreetly, because that's how a grown person handles their weed. And when you're mature enough for me not to catch you with it, I won't rip it off you. That's the worst punishment I would give them. Also, because I love weed. So ask yourself that. What would you do if you were a cop and you came across something that you just don't think ought to be a crime? Well, guess what? Most cops are right-wingers. I would honestly put this to you. If, at a minimum, I would knock off the rhetoric where we say, like people shouting ACAB. It's not that it's not a corrupt organization. It is. It's not that we don't need fundamental change of policing in the United States. I'm talking about ground up. I'm talking about maybe saying, yeah, police simply don't carry guns anymore. Fundamental change. But all along the way, what I would encourage is this. Get lefties involved. I would rather have lefty cops, a department that is 95% Serpicos, than a bunch of, Klansmen legally pointing guns at people. But when you ask why they keep getting away with it, that's the answer, in my opinion. It's that the people in charge, including every leader of the FBI ever, the people in charge are conservatives. And as we've learned, the conservative ideology, if you want things to stay the way they were in a country where they were never very good, that's a problem. And Republicans are a straight up criminal organization. So we wonder why we come across cops covering up body cams and removing their name tags before they do some shady whatever, covering up Ring cameras and trying to make it illegal to record them as they work. We wonder why they do that. Well, they're from a criminal organization. They want to do crime. That's why. Here's the result. Look at that. Oh, I'll point out that Republican politicians are through and through cowards as well. They're the bone spur crowd. They respond to pressure exactly the way that that terrorists would want them to respond to pressure.
They would have voted in a way not beneficial to Trump, but they felt physically threatened, and so they voted in a way beneficial to Trump. Quote, think of your personal safety. Think of your children. Why put your wife and children at risk? If public life, public service, even just regular citizen participation in regular politics is suffused with threats of violence now, one of the things that for sure does is it forces regular people out of politics and out of public service. Right? It is common sense. If politics and public service are being made into something that is quite literally dangerous, then in the normal course of events, normal people will steer clear. Right? That's part of why we have a protected, right to associate with others, even for political purposes in this country, right? You ought to be able to gather with others. You ought to be able to assemble. You have the right to assemble peaceably to seek the redress of grievances.
That's not what I wanted.
Why do we have a right to peaceably assemble? So that people can assemble peaceably, so that you don't feel like trying to redress your grievances with the government is something that's going to expose you to physical danger, either from the government or from anyone else.
All right. I do, there we go. I want to touch on one thing. What she considers to be normal people have 2 bathrooms per person living in their home. Or let's say 1.5 bathrooms per person living in their home. What she considers to be normal people are softer than a baby's bottom. Here's the thing, though. She's, aside from what she considers to be normal people, her assessment is right. That crowd will be too scared to be in politics. Let's take advantage of that. There are 2 groups in this country which are genuinely brave. I don't like them equally, but they are genuinely brave. Group number 1 is MAGA. Yeah, I know. We see a lot of cowardly behavior, cowardly tactics, but don't get it twisted. When it's cowardly tactics done by someone who's not a coward, that's just called ruthless strategy, really. Just despicable, calculated strategy. But they were willing to throw hands. Give them credit. They did it for evil reasons, but at least there is a section of them that's willing to walk the walk. Who shows up to counter-protest? And they're wearing hoods and they're prepared to be proper henchmen, It's MAGA types. What's the other group that's brave? What's the other group with chutzpah, with a spine? Progressives. It's your time. You were wondering, when is your time to get into politics, right? Meow. As the cat said. Right now. Because cowards are fleeing. And that power vacuum can either be filled with MAGA, because nobody was willing to run against them, even though they're incredibly unpopular, or you. Give it some thought.
We protect protesters. We protect people assembling peaceably to say their piece so that we can all peacefully say our piece, so our government will be accountable to us, so our government will continue to adapt to the needs and the wants and the voice of the people. What we have now is an atmosphere of ultra-right-wing political violence and threat, which doesn't only affect the individual politicians and civil servants and poll workers and law enforcement officials who are being directly targeted by Trump supporters. It has a systemic effect too, right? Systemically over time, it thins out, it hollows out the public sphere and government. So it's no longer for anybody. It's only for the brave and the militant and those who themselves are willing to either abide threats of violence or issue them themselves. And that is not the kind of democracy we are. That is not what we are supposed to be. We are supposed to have a rollicking free press. We are supposed to have the constitutionally protected freedom to associate.
And just to make it clear, progressives will never issue threats of violence. MAGA issues threats of violence. But progressives will absolutely give you the promise of an ass whooping if you're the kind that should bring violence into the mix. I'm not saying progressives will ever sucker punch. That just ain't honorable, so it just ain't progressive. But we'll knock your teeth out, Rebs. And we can't wait. We genuinely can't wait. So don't make it come to that. I beg you, because I'm required to. I beg you not to make it come to that. Don't grant my wish, because my wish only comes true in a very, very dark future that neither of us really want. Not really. But there is that promise.
Freedom to assemble, including for political reasons, for redress of grievances from the government. We are supposed to have a vibrant, rollicking civil society. We're supposed to have no barrier to entry, participatory democracy at every level, from student government to school board to city hall to your locally elected dog catcher and alderman and state rep and president. If participation in public life at every level instead is cowed by people wielding guns and threats of mob violence and death threats and intimidation of witnesses and the doxing of grand jurors and all the rest of it, then at a fundamental level, we are just doing it wrong. We are doing it, in fact, like way too much of the rest of the world does it.
Well put.
And the fact that we haven't been that, the fact that we have been different, the fact that we have been a place where government is by and for the people is, at least until now, why so much of the world has been aspiring to come here when they can. Last week, we saw Republicans in the state of Wisconsin fire the widely praised, technocratic, nonpartisan administrator of elections in that crucial swing state, after she refused to help Wisconsin Republicans muddle or overturn the results of that state's presidential election in 2020. Republicans in the Wisconsin legislature were told by the attorney general of the state, they were told by their own lawyers in the legislature, that they do not have the authority to fire this election official. But they went ahead and they are trying to do it anyway. This week, we'll see Republicans in the crucial swing state of North Carolina try to do effectively the same thing, as North Carolina Republicans this week are teeing up a vote to take over elections administration in that state, too. They have been trying to do this in North Carolina, but they have been blocked so far by voters in a clear state referendum. Also, multiple court rulings are standing in their way, too. But this week, they're apparently ready to go for it again, to take over the administration of elections in that swing state. Because heaven forbid we hold on to free and fair, technocratically sound and boring election administration in this country. Real small d democracy. Heaven forbid we hold on to that when instead we could trade it in for garbage, untrusted elections like everybody else has in so many parts of the rest of the world, which again is one of the things that sends good people of all those other countries in the world fleeing to us when they can. Because for so long we've done it better. Because our Constitution has led us to do it better. We have a good and rare thing going in this country. A republic, if we can keep it. Doesn't mean we don't have our problems, but we have a good system for fixing our problems. We are listed as the in case of emergency contact in the phone of the whole rest of the world.
Oh, well put.
Which is something to be proud of. And it is something to fight hard to protect. Back with us now for the interview is
Oh, we're gonna watch the other part of this. So again, I remind you, we're doing a longer stream this time around because I want to watch the entirety of this content with y'all live to see if it's a fun thing to do. But let's first talk about or let's read your comments. Unfriendly Atheist. If you're not progressive, you are too conservative. Thank you. Yeah, that's how I genuinely feel. Mars Falcon, I fear you are correct. Pinkerbell, aloha, unfriendly atheist. Let me jump up to Pinkerbell. What was that comment? LOL. Well, fair enough. No, I've missed it. Hi there, John Bailey. Good to see you. Oh, you got good comments. I'll go through them in a moment. I do want to read. Ooh, Cosmic Messenger. Nice. I like the handle. Bob Treesh. I love Rachel. I miss her. One night a week isn't enough. Yeah, I know. My dogs are goth. By the way, I might take your advice, RE, the internet connection. Here's my closing thoughts on Maddow, her segment there. Same as the opening thoughts. That message is not something I think that was much of a surprise to you guys. Progressives on the internet have been sounding the alarm for at least 6 months now. That the talk and the actions coming out of the U.S. right-wing crazies, which is to say the Republican Party. It's been unacceptable, it's been dangerous, and when I say unacceptable and dangerous, I mean the law should intervene. Why hasn't the law intervened? Well, that's tradition in the United States if you're wealthy and also if you're conservative. Because the law enforcement is made up of primarily right-wing psychos, we get a terrible job of law enforcement done. Period. And also blatant favoritism towards conservatives. And it's simply not something we can afford anymore. This isn't a what you can do segment, but I'll tell you what you can do about it anyway. Long term. All right, now let's start with the immediate. With the immediate, stop saying ACAB. It's not helpful. And it discourages one of the things that we need to have happen. Because one of the long-term things you can do is encourage progressives to become cops, to become prosecutors, to become, to start careers in law enforcement, to become judges, etc., etc., etc. I would rather progressives be the one enforcing the law. And the lefter you go, the more righteous you get. So we should reform what the laws actually are, but the people in charge of enforcing them ought to be people that you would trust to babysit a teenager, for example. Thus, I would recommend progressives. We got more Maddow in a moment. All right, her guest during this interview was, well, I should probably record that too. Maddow's guest during this interview gives some insight as far as I'm aware. She gives some insight into the degradation of U.S. democracy and what that will actually mean around the world. The conversation that I think would be good to have, and I'm glad Rachel Maddow is having it. Is having it via this guest. I'm sorry I don't remember her name, but I tell you who does. That's Rachel Maddow.
Linda Thomas Greenfield, she is the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. This is the week of the United Nations General Assembly. Along with President Biden, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is going to be speaking with the UN General Assembly this week. I think they're both speaking tomorrow.
I know the president is speaking tomorrow.
I also expect that President Biden and President Zelensky will meet and continue their talks in person on this trip. I have to ask you about something that I realize is a thorny sort of thing, which is that one of the things we've learned in the news in the past week or so is that as America is supporting Ukraine in its war to defend itself against Russia, a single American citizen has business interests of such a type that he has been able, as an individual, to make decisions to constrain Ukraine's military from carrying out operations against Russia. And I'm talking, of course, about Elon Musk. I'm sure this is not an unprecedented thing in American history, but in Mr. Musk's case, we've got somebody who is an American businessman who effectively has foreign policy sway on his own, and who, for whatever reason, has effectively decided to conduct competing and, I would say, oppositional foreign policy to the United States, a country of which he is a citizen. Who does President Zelensky come to complain about that? I mean, you are the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, but Mr. Musk appears to be competing with his own country in terms of what his foreign policy is, and he has the technological resources to do it in a materially significant way.
You know, I would assume that President Zelensky will raise that with the United States. And having served as an ambassador overseas and served here, I do have countries come to me to complain sometimes about the actions of an American company in their country. And we do try to address those issues when they're brought to our attention. So
Wow, what a non-answer. Sometimes people complain to me and then we try to address those issues. Oh, say, can you... What the hell? I mean, look, we have to... we're going to have another round of glad this is on TV when they start using the word oligarch more often. What happens when you have one rich business person in a country dictating that country's foreign policy? That's an oligarch. What's the answer? It's something neoliberals are going to be real uncomfortable with, and do you see that streak of gray? I guess it's a streak of white amongst the gray in her hair. That should tell you she has been in this game for a while. Sometimes that's very good. Other times that means she cut her teeth amongst neoliberals. She is comfortable operating amongst them, and she sees them as the way to hold on to power. She is not going to say, well, he's an oligarch. And the problem is we need to get rid of oligarchs. We should not have anyone with that amount of power. You and I, theoretically, are taxpayers. When we pay our taxes, sometimes billions of them are stolen from the United States. I shouldn't say stolen because it's legal. They're taken from the United States and they're given to people like Elon Musk in the form of a giant tax break or windfall or whatever. Anytime Elon Musk gambles with his money and loses, the United States rushes in and says, oh, no, we can't let that happen. He's too big to fail. We got to bail him out because jobs are on the line here. Yachts are on the line, for God's sake. His kids might not be able to go to private school on the moon. And because our power is stolen from us and given to Musk, that gives him the ability to do things like the Starlink program, which he is allowed complete control over, and he can choose whether or not to help in Ukraine. And if we're saying that we're deferring to a independent businessman to provide Ukraine with communications, but we put no restrictions on what that businessman can do, because we are afraid of the power of the oligarch, then, folks, we are in an oligarchy. Funny enough, for those of you that don't understand why Ukraine being allowed to exist benefits everybody else, let me first of all remind us all that they could offer us nothing and they would still have a right to exist, to not be invaded by imperialist scum, and we should still, even if they were of no use to us whatsoever, we should still full-throatedly and with teeth and nails, if necessary, defend them against that imperialist scum. That said, understand that Ukraine wrote laws that did away with oligarchs, and we should copy those laws. Literally copy their work. Write it down ourselves. They have good laws for that. We did a segment on it. I recommend you check that out. But it's how we can get rid of oligarchs. Pretty simple laws. All it requires that we do is define what an oligarch is. Pretty easy to do. It's basically somebody that makes enough money within a country that they can unduly affect how the politics of that country work, and then make it illegal for that person with that amount of money to do those things that affect politics in that country. It's that simple. You can still be rich. You can still be filthy rich. You just can't be an oligarch. Because your wealth does not get to lessen the people's voice in politics. That is why Ukraine is of use to us. Also, they make a hell of a lot of food that we eat. In other words, if you're a farmer that fell for Russian propaganda and you think that Ukraine is sufficiently othered, I will remind you they are the farmers of Europe. They do for the world what you do for the United States.
Assume if President Zelensky has a complaint, he will bring that to us if he hasn't already. He hasn't brought it to me.
With the kind of technology that we're talking about here, this Starlink technology linked to Mr. Musk's SpaceX company, no. We can't go beyond that. I assume that Mr. Musk will tell us if he has a complaint. If he doesn't like me putting this gun against his temple, I'm sure he'll look me in the eyes and say, I don't like that gun against my temple. You remember when Trump made Zelensky do a press conference with him and they were sitting in front of cameras and Zelensky was wide-eyed saying like, yep, Trump is great. I love Trump. For sure. He debased himself like that to protect his people. Similarly, he might not choose to step on the toes of an American oligarch because he's had a hell of a time with Ukrainian oligarchs already. He understands their power, and he understands that a populace that does not hate the oligarch is vulnerable to them. And the U.S. populace is pretty damn wishy-washy. We need to sober up in that regard. Toot sweet. integral, effectively information supply line for Ukrainian military forces, an irreplaceable asset for them. And that's bad in one sense, we now know, because the United States as a government effectively can't make a decision as to how that resource should be deployed to help or hurt our ally in that conflict. It's instead being made by a business, which is purportedly an American business, but not behaving in a way that is consistent with America's stated interests. What are the responsibilities of the American government toward American businesses that are messing with American foreign policy?
You know, we do two things working with American companies overseas. We support American companies in their efforts to work overseas, but we also establish certain parameters for how American companies operate. This is a situation that I can't comment on specifically. I don't know any of the details of this, but I do expect that.
How doesn't this sound like something to you? To me, this sounds a hell of a lot like when a Republican didn't read the tweet. I can't comment on it because I didn't read it. This sounds a hell of a lot like when a politician doesn't want to talk about something that they're supposed to talk about. Well, I can't really say because I don't really know. Well, what the hell did you agree to do the interview for? She can say. She does know. The answers will not please you. That's why she doesn't say. She cannot please you and her bosses at the same time. She cannot please you and keep the ultra comfortable just as comfy. If she so much as makes them get kind of a little tickle of guilt in the back of their brain, she might be fired next week. That's the system we live in. You know, maybe personally, she's a good woman. Maybe in fact, I would say through her actions, not personally, but through her actual career, she's done a lot of good. She has been a overall benefit in the jobs she's held. But make no mistake, she's giving the answers she's giving because she knows that you all will not like the truth. So she's choosing not to answer those questions which you won't like the answer for. And you are free to assume the worst then. She had an opportunity. That's the point of shows like this. She had an opportunity to give an answer. She chose not to. And because she is the expert, you may assume the worst. And if your assumptions turn out to be wrong, fine. Let somebody else come out and explain why that is. But the onus is not on us to wait forever and ever and ever and ever for our leaders to act like decent human beings. We don't have to sacrifice the rest of our lives and all of our children's lives on the hope that our grandchildren might live in the America that was promised. No, we can demand it right goddamn now.
President Zelensky will raise it, and it will be brought to the attention of others to address.
I knew you were going to avoid answering me on that question.
Because she serves the oligarchy.
I knew. Yeah. I could tell you before I asked it, because I know that you can't answer it in the specific. But I find it to be a confounding situation, just as an observer and as an American.
That little nod at the end broke my heart. First of all, Rachel, you look how I feel. You look how I feel.
Confounding situation, just as an observer.
That nod broke my heart.
Just as an observer and as an American.
She knows. She doesn't like it, but she is going to play the game. Don't be too harsh on her in particular, on that guest in particular. But understand that she is still the red right hand of a system that we need to address. Frankly, we don't need to get rid of the messengers, but we do need to change the message they are being given. So just understand what you're seeing.
Another situation that is confounding and concerning is one that the Biden administration has expressed very sharp concern about, which is a new law in Uganda, which is being called the Kill the Gays law, which establishes, in fact, the death penalty for something they call aggravated homosexuality. They've already started to arrest people under this law. They're threatening to kill people just for being gay. The Biden administration has been very sharply critical of this. The Obama administration was very sharply critical of this in 2013 and 2014 when the Ugandan government tried it the first time around. But there are a couple ways in which U.S. fingerprints are actually on this horrific policy. One is that American right-wing evangelical activists have encouraged the Ugandan government to do this. The other is that U.S. funds make up a significant portion of the Ugandan government's operating expenses, specifically the massive assistance we give them through the PEPFAR program to contradict the effects of HIV and AIDS in that country.
Before we get to the PEPFAR program, those evangelical activists that encourage this in Uganda, you know, some things we need to stand up and demand that our leaders deal with. And other things we need to take responsibility entirely for ourselves with. If you know anyone at all who listens to these people, who gives money to this filth, it needs to be the top priority in your life to get that person to stop. Now, if you need to explain to them, literally as we did on this stream, what death is, then do so. Because they're advocating for people's deaths. They're supporting someone who advocates for people's deaths. If you need to literally say, wait a minute, do you understand what you've just said? Truly, do you know what the end is? Because I'll explain it. If you never had that moment growing up, I'll explain it. Why are they advocating for this, that, or the other thing? Because they irrationally can't stand the kind of way certain people like to jizz them. Just think about how insane that is for a moment. The body type someone's attracted to. And this is what they advocate for? You can't let that go. You can't let them go through their lives thinking that they aren't supporters of the worst evil humanity is capable of. They are. And that must change. So, if you know somebody that is a supporter of one of these evangelicals that went to Uganda and said, you really should have the death penalty for homosexuality. If you have somebody who goes to an evangelical Baptist church and you know their church leader is out there saying, oh, the gays got to go, you need to have an intervention with them. And even if in your own mind you think they'll never listen to me, it doesn't matter. You have an obligation. You have to try over and over again. If you're worried that it'll ruin your relationship with them, oh well. You cannot have people out there supporting this behavior. I would certainly hope, and my suspicion is that in reality, it won't ruin your relationship. You have these conversations literally and frankly. You're not attacking them, but you are demanding. There is a bare minimum amount of decency. We can disagree on a whole lot. You cannot advocate for the genocide of another group of people. You just cannot. And still be expected to be treated like you are a decent human being, because you're not. You can become one in an instant. In one instant. You stop supporting the genocide of a group of people, welcome to the good guys. It's that simple. But until you do that, you're not a good guy. You can't get the credit. You can't get the respect. You cannot get the kindness. No, sir. No, ma'am. It is an act of love to not allow them to continue down that path. It is an act of caring for them. Save their soul, because they need Jesus or whatever the secular equivalent is.
PEPFAR is, of course, a very successful program. And I think all sort of righteous people want to defend it in terms of how many lives it saved around the world. But I keep hearing
25 million.
It's an astonishingly effective American program, perhaps one of the most life-saving American interventions in the world ever. And I keep hearing from activists.
I shouldn't laugh about this, but I'm unable not to bring this up. Does anybody remember Jiminy Glick? Side note, do you remember Jiminy Glick? Listen to how she says it's an astonishingly effective American program.
It's an astonishingly effective American program.
Doesn't that just sound like Jiminy Glick? Just a little bit there. All right, but now let's talk about this deeply sad thing.
And perhaps one of the most life-saving American interventions in the world ever. And I keep hearing from activists who are trying to keep the gay community from being killed off by their government in Uganda that PEPFAR funds are specifically being routed through the Ugandan government in a way that empowers and rewards the ministries and the individual ministers who are most responsible in Uganda for that policy. And given how strongly the administration feels about this, isn't there a way that that funding could be directed so that it's still solving the problem in Uganda, but it is not making the problem worse for that sexual minority that is facing really, really serious risk?
You know, I was asked this question by Lawrence O'Donnell when I was on his show the last time after you spoke to him. And let me just start out by saying that this law is horrific, and we've made very clear in no uncertain terms to the Ugandan government that it is unacceptable. And we are doing everything in our power to support the LGBTQ community in Uganda to ensure their safety and to ensure that they are not damaged by this law. And we do know that at least one individual has recently been arrested and charged and is in the process of being tried.
I don't know enough to say whether we should pull that funding or not. I will say this. If the Ugandan government wants that funding, then it should be pulled until that law is repealed and that person is allowed their freedom again. That prisoner of the state, who is a prisoner solely because of their identity, we have to not play games with this. I would consider military intervention. I would consider pulling any and all aid. I don't know how I would actually come down on those things. As I say it, when we're talking real, like military intervention, I should first of all clarify. I don't mean sending in snipers or whatever, but like a blockade. Oh, nope, you're not leaving the country. We're not leaving the country. Ships with cargo full of jeans or whatever. Nope, turn around. Go back. You got a law to repeal. But even as I say that, yada yada, is that the kind of action we want to build the world, that blah, blah, blah? I just don't know. But what I do know is we don't have to support at all a country that behaves like this. And when we do, we tell all other countries around the world, hey, if you want to wet your beak with U.S. money a little bit, these are among the things you're allowed to do. Accepting aid from the U.S. should also mean accepting a base level of decency. Not only because it dictates where our allies may stand, but it dictates where we currently stand, where our morality is. Are we a country that allows genocides from our allies? We used to be. I don't want to be. Now that said, this is world politics. This is a step above what I'm used to reporting on, which also means I don't have years and years of background to sniff out what is a facade and what is not. And Biden is calling, as they say there, for the repeal of the anti-gay law. I hope he's got a good plan, but my gut instinct when looking at this is to say any and all aid should be frozen already, not to be unfrozen until Uganda can effing get its act together.
Because it's a capital offense, is being held in prison awaiting trial.
And it is a capital
life-threatening
offense.
situation.
So we are looking at, and I said this before, how we can continue to provide the good support that PEPFAR provides directly to individuals to help save their lives without putting that funding through the Ugandan government or through individuals in the Ugandan government who are responsible for implementing this law. It's a huge dilemma, but we have to find a way to do that. And we have to find a way to hold those accountable who are basically violating the human rights of the LGBTQ community in Uganda. We engage with them on a regular basis. I was involved with this.
You know, it's heartbreaking to see Rachel Maddow laying it out like that, basically pleading with this person. She's trying, I mean, she was, again and again, she was saying, all right, this is what they said they will do. Now they've got someone in prison. Now they're trying him. If he's found guilty, you know what they're going to do to him? They're going to kill him. Just so you know. What do you say to that, guest? We are thinking about this. We are aware. You know, we're apprised of the situation. We're ducking and juking. We have a whole folder on it, and we read through the folder and we go, why are we so afraid? Drastic action is called for. Take it. Take drastic action. It can be simple, but it should be grand. You get no money. Not a dollar. Not this, not that, not the other thing. You get nothing. Not one, not two, not three, not four, five. 5 stones. If you don't have the 5 stones, you don't even get one for the cause. You just get nothing. 0 stones, 0 money. Go Gary Oldman on their asses, is what I'm saying. Pull out of any deal that we have with them. Our deal should be made with everybody under the assumption that the person we are dealing with is not engaged in a genocide. Now I realize the money we give them is supposed to help people, keep other people alive. I am sorry, but I suspect that all we're doing when we do that, if we continue to prop up these leaders who will selectively kill their own population, is perpetuating that. Jay Dragon, by the way, I saw that you're going into lurk mode. I respect it, and I just wanted to say thank you very much. I appreciate the boost to the algorithm. We are going to keep things going here. I'm going to record something real quick. It's just a voice line that I want to insert into a fake commercial, one of many that I'm hoping to film and have help and film with the cooperation of some members of the Wicked community, including Wireless Mike, which I'm looking forward to. All right, let me record this. These cars right here were built by fine American slaves. That's it. That's the line I wanted to record. Oh, Pinkerbell, the stakes are real. Yes, indeed. Styx, Dragon, Charon, the anti-corporatist. I just pull the boat. Ooh, interesting. Let me see what AC said. The anti-corporatist, heading days. So stupid. I mean, I literally do not get the point. What's the freaking point? I am out of the loop. I apologize. My dogs are goth. How about war crime charges? Yeah. Or, crimes against humanity, etc. Yeah, completely. Mars Falcon. Martin Short also did a stint on SNL. Maybe Glick was a character from there. My dogs are goth. Yeah, I don't. Well, I can tell you where Jiminy Glick came from. I think, or I believe I recall this correctly. Martin Short did it purely to do a show for, I believe, Comedy Central. But when he did it, Jiminy Glick is based off somebody that he actually knew back in the day. And it was like a guy in his neighborhood who I think they owned a dealership. They were some middle manager type. And they talked very much like this, and then they got low. And they did both. And, yeah, I could probably watch everything Martin Short has ever done as Glick on repeat and not get bored. It is the funniest goddamn thing I have ever seen. And I saw somebody genuinely slip on a banana peel once. So that's saying a lot. Oh. I'm setting up another one, folks. Again, I remind you, this is we're doing a marathon stream here. I won't be heartbroken if you got a dip. I understand. What I'm attempting to do is a Vosh style, a Jeff Waldorf style long stream where we look at a lot of things and I give my genuine take on them. And also killing two birds with one stone. I am hoping that during this process of getting educated, we find things that we really do want to do a What You Can Do segment on. But this leans more on the WYCD side. Got one from CNN here, and I'll tell you, it's a somewhat less good of a video by Leah Miller that was recommended to me, I believe, by the anti-corporatist. Thank you very much. But first, let's look at the CNN take on this. The concept is, why do right-wingers hate democracy? Genuinely. I realize that's the kind of thing you might hear a right-winger say, but we have also learned in recent years that they are very much the rubber and glue types, and they are eager to call other people out for behavior that they are actually the ones participating in. So, no, right-wingers don't care for democracy at all. CNN talked about it. Let's see if we agree with their assessment.
Warns America is at risk, facing an authoritarian backlash as it moves toward a multiracial democracy and tyranny of the minority. Two Harvard professors take a look at why they believe America's democracy is being attacked from within. They argue the country lags dangerously behind other modern democracies, and part of it because of issues like January 6th, but also because it hasn't taken any steps to eliminate minority rule, and that, they say, has allowed a minority to thwart the will of American voters. And joining us now to talk about this are the authors of the book, Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Zablat. Stephen and Daniel, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's a very important book, and I think a lot of folks have been grasping to try to figure out, well, what is going on with our country? Why is our democracy in peril, it feels like, to a lot of Americans? But let's get to the title. Because that, I think, we just need to get that out of the gate. What does tyranny of the minority mean? And I'll start with you, Stephen.
Well, we are the only presidential democracy in the world where the president can lose the election, lose the popular vote, and become president. We are one of the few democracies in the world where a major legislative body, the Senate, the party that loses the popular vote can control, and routinely does control, the Senate. We are the only established democracy in the world where justices have lifetime tenure. There's no term limits. There's no retirement age. So this set of institutions and others allows political minorities to systematically thwart and sometimes even govern over majorities. Very quickly, think back to 2016. Donald Trump lost the popular vote and won the presidency. In the U.S. Senate, the Democrats won the popular vote, and the Republicans came away with control of the Senate. That president and that Senate went on to nominate and confirm 3 justices, which totally transformed the nature of the Supreme Court. We have one of the very few democracies in the world where minorities, political minorities, can routinely block, thwart, even rule over majorities.
Right. And Daniel, let me ask you this.
So just to be clear, why do we have that? Because the minority who is ruling wants us to have that. So how do we get rid of that? Well, we make sure that minority rule is broken in 1 year. That means we're going to have to engage in yet another unfair fight. We're going to know it's unfair. We're going to know that in our best estimates, even if we do a great job fighting gerrymandering, it's still going to be a major, major factor in the House. We have to win, regardless. Now, in the past, we got told that was the case. But we did not have the culture developed to do anything about it when we did win, when we had those big victories. We expected that was the end of the fight. That's not. And this is going to be first of all, what you and I have to sell to the American people. And also what we have to fundamentally understand. There is a class in between the voter and the politician, which you and I now occupy. The organizing class. We need to convince the voters to give us the tools to do something in 2024. Actually, 2025. End of 2024 is when the voters need to act. We are also part of the voting class. Everybody is part of the voting class, in fact. But what we need out of the people that are only in the voting class is to give us the necessary tools. We need progressives. The ideal situation would be a super majority. I don't think we're going to get this, but we're going to try for it. A super majority in the House, Senate, and White House. And then you and I go to work again. Oh my God, that poor spine. I ask it for so much when I wiggle. once we have, at the very least, control of the House, Senate, and White House, then we pass major, fundamental legislative changes. That's when we can get Medicare for all. That's when we can get rid of the Electoral College, and so on and so forth. But we need first to activate the voters. So understand that we are not selling them on yet another giant effort followed by faith in the political class. No. We have held that faith under the water till the bubbles stop. No, you and I will have to take over at that point, and we will control those politicians who will be reliant on us to make it through the primaries. We must learn from those people who have hurt us. Example, MAGA. They took over their party. We should do the same with ours. But we don't do it with all the extra nonsense they bring in that frankly shows them for who they truly are deep down and ruins any political point they might have ever made. Yet their strategy is dead on. Above all else, those politicians who I suspect don't really love their families, don't really give a if their families get blown up by some MAGA terrorist, but they sure do love themselves and their careers. That much, maybe they do love their families. I don't know, but the thing to threaten is not their well-being, it's their career. That we know they love. That we know they're willing to do a lot for. They're willing to lie for. They're willing to cheat for. They're willing to steal for. Their careers, no matter what side of the aisle they're on, are a treasured thing to politicians. It's a paycheck. It's a good paycheck to politicians. So, we make them dependent on us to keep that. That is the ultimate bribe, the office itself.
Both argue in the book that the Republican Party has turned away from democracy, and rather than expel these anti-democratic extremists from their ranks, that the GOP has essentially accepted and made room for them, starting with the former president, of course. How big is the authoritarian movement in the party right now, would you say? Is it the party?
Yeah, well, you have to think that to be a political party that's committed to democracy, you have to do three basic things. First of all, you have to accept elections, win or lose. Second of all, you have to never use violence to gain power or to hold on to power. And most critically, in some sense, you have to also distance yourself from political actors who engage in those first two behaviors. And what's so shocking and troubling about the current dynamic in the United States is that we have a political party that's violating increasingly all three of those, and especially that last third category. When you think about mainstream politicians, people who are business attire, suits, that look like normal Democratic politicians are committed to, they look like they're committed to democracy. They sound sometimes like they're committed to democracy. But if they know that their allies are engaging in violence or engaging in election denialism, to accept that, to not condemn it, to not say we have nothing to do with that, that's unacceptable, is to enable an authoritarian strand within their own party. And just a final note there is that, look, we've studied democracies and democratic breakdowns throughout history. And what we've discovered is very often the enablers, those who look like semi-loyal, those who look like democratic politicians, but actually who are not, are the ones who ultimately get democracy into trouble.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that we're covering today is how down in Florida, the Florida Republican Party has said they're not going to have this loyalty pledge anymore. That was what Donald Trump wanted. He didn't want to have a loyalty pledge in order to get on the Florida ballot. Let me ask you about this, Stephen. It takes me to my next question, which is a lot of this about Donald Trump? If he becomes the president next year, what does that mean for the country? But if he loses, could that mean that some of the problems that you're talking about, that they might be alleviated somewhat? What do you think?
It's only partially about Donald Trump. As Daniel just said, what's really critical, a single leader, even a very popular demagogue like Donald Trump, cannot destroy a democracy by himself. It takes the enabling of a political party, of a major political party, the toleration, the support, the protection of a major political party to enable him to do a lot of damage. And So the problem is that the Republican Party leadership, even though in private they will speak very badly of Donald Trump, continue to support him in public. And one reason that they do that, and this gets back to the minority rule side of our book, is that the Republican Party as a whole nationally doesn't have to win national majorities. It can win the presidency with through the Electoral College without winning the popular vote. It's lost the popular vote in 7 out of the last 8 elections, and yet it's won 3 out of the last 8 elections. Same thing in the Senate. They don't need to win the popular vote to win control of the Senate. So a party that doesn't need to win majorities, that's protected in a sense by the Constitution, can get away with playing around with Donald Trump rather than looking for a candidate or looking for a platform that can win national majorities.
Don't have a ton to say other than he's right. That is a correct assessment. And the thing to do about it, House, Senate, White House, 2024, major structural changes pushed by the organizers. That's you, that's me, after we gain the House, Senate, and White House. Currently, any bill that we want is not going to come from the House in order to be passed by the Senate and signed by the president. We lost out on half of Biden's presidency when we lost the House. That's how it works. We need to regain the House. And frankly, when we had the Senate, we barely had the Senate. We were reliant on pleasing, God help us, Kirsten whatever the hell, Sinema, who is no longer even a Democrat in name, and Manchin, who is a conservative, whatever he calls himself. He is a coal mine owner. Fuck that guy. We needed their votes in the first half of Biden's presidency. I know Biden ain't exactly our dream husband here, but let's be real. He's shown a willingness to match the political leanings of the House and Senate that he is provided with. Let's take advantage of that.
And Daniel, I mean, that takes me to my next question. You both write that the Constitution is part of the problem here. You're proposing the elimination of the Electoral College, noting that we're the only democracy in the world. And I do think it is worth underlining. We're the only democracy in the world that still has the Electoral College, or that has an Electoral College. Let's talk about that.
And let's point out, we are a failing democracy. Remember what our big brag used to be? Do you remember that? The peaceful transfer of power. We used to brag about that. Even after the Civil War, for some reason, we still bragged about it. That's twice now. 2 times that we have not had a peaceful transfer of power. Time number 1, we had a whole war about it. And then we let stochastic terrorists give a domestic terrorist the courage necessary to assassinate President Lincoln. The man who replaced Lincoln decided that the South was going to get treated like they were heroes, not traitor scum, for attempting to secede in order to keep black people in chains. Then the second time, January 6th. And we didn't even need to get rid of the Lincoln there, because he appointed Merrick freaking Garland to get to the bottom of what happened. And Merrick Garland said, we're going to treat these traitors as gently as possible, except the times have changed slightly. So to him, anybody that makes less than $1 million a year, they're not people. They can go to prison. All the J6ers who got tricked by Trump, they can go to prison. Just not people in his eyes. Which to him, that means rich people.
Yes, so, I mean, and of course, our Constitution is a remarkable document, and there's many great virtues to it. But one of the things we have to remember is that
its greatest virtue is that it can change. That's built right into it.
over the
Please say that.
last since its founding, we've improved the Constitution. We've done the hard work of making our Constitution more democratic. Women got the right to vote at the beginning of the 20th century by amending
Yes,
the
sir.
Constitution. We began to elect senators rather than appoint senators at the beginning of the 20th century. And our
Boom.
democracy has strengthened itself over time through amendments, through improving it. What's tragic in our view is that in the last 50 years, we've sort of stopped doing that work. Whereas other democracies have continued to make their constitutions more democratic. Since around 1970, we've abandoned that project. So what we propose in the last chapter of the book, we lay out 15 proposals for institutional reforms that we think not only are essential, but are, at some level are possible and would help us restore the kind of faith that we feel like we need to have in our democracy.
And didn't we get close to getting rid of the Electoral College, or there was some movement towards this? And correct me if I'm mistaken, Richard Nixon of all people, sounded favorable to the idea. That might strike people as being very strange. Stephen, let me have you take that one.
Yeah, we got very, very close to abolishing the Electoral College. Because as Daniel said, we've stopped doing the work of trying to make our system more democratic over the last 50 years. Most of us can't remember a period anymore where we actually thought seriously about reforming the Constitution, but we used to do it, and we tried and came very close in the late 1960s. The leaderships of both political parties supported abolition of the Electoral College. Richard Nixon, the AFL-CIO, the Chamber of Commerce, the American Bar Association. The House voted overwhelmingly to abolish the Electoral College. There was a majority in the Senate, and something like 75% of Americans in polls supported it. But it didn't get the 2/3 that it needed in the Senate, and so it died.
Minority rule was protected there, I guess. And I just finally, Daniel, one last question to you. What do you say to critics out there who might,
Let's talk about that 2/3 for a moment, because that's the supermajority I was referring to. How do we get there? Are we going to get there in 2024? No. We're going to try, but we will not get it. Simply, I mean, all right. Let me do this like 2016. There's a 15% chance, let's say. It's an arbitrary number. A 15% chance. Let's downgrade that. A 5% chance that we will get a supermajority necessary for this. That means there's a 95% chance we won't. Does that mean we toss all other plans out the window and scramble for that very unlikely thing? Try to up that percent chance from a 5 to a 7 to a 9? No. Because in that most favorable of situations, that still leaves us with a 91% chance that all our efforts will be in vain. No, you do the humble victories first, unfortunately. You got to win a couple of elections in succession. You do that by step 1, getting people who are serious in power. You get, and that's not as vague as it seems. You just get people in power who you understand the motivations of. It's not based off a notion. It's not based off, well, they barbecue and I like to barbecue. They must be like me. No, that's the nonsense they use to trick you. That's part of why Bernie Sanders is so beloved. He doesn't play that. He does what he does, and he is who he is, and he's very upfront about that, but he's not playing somebody in order to trick us into believing that he is somehow going to look out for our interests. No, he's going to look out for our interests based on the words he says and the actions he takes. He states goals, and he campaigns for those goals. We need that multiplied by about 200 more politicians in order to sway things. If that sounds like a tremendous get, it is for one election. But if you get a significant group of progressives, I'm talking a couple squads worth of the squad, and you start getting popular legislation passed, this will have a cumulative effect. I have seen it in Michigan. I've seen the promised land. Oh, Michigan looked so purple. So purple. Michigan was controlled at the state level by Republicans time and time again. Michigan voted for Trump 2016. What was the thing that changed? Well, number one, in Michigan, the redistricting changed in 2018. Following that, in 2020, there was a wave, a blue wave, a beautiful blue wave. And then progressive legislation got passed, and people liked it. It's that simple. The W's just keep coming. 2022, the hold of progressives, or at the very least, let's just call them Democrats in Michigan, strengthened. You build on victories, in other words. That is how you get a supermajority. And is it likely? Let's say one election from now. Hell, 2 elections from now. Is it likely that we're going to get the kind of supermajority that's necessary? Still no. But if we can keep it together, we can up our percent chance to 35, 40, 45, 49, 51, 52. It will never be guaranteed until it happens. But we can make it more likely to happen by showing up and by having candidates that show up and ensuring those candidates legislate the way they said they would. That is going to mean ruthless use of the primary. Ruthless use of the primary. And of course, your full-throated support and your frequent participation doesn't have to be the only thing you do with your time. In fact, you don't need to spend a terribly long amount of time actually doing any of this stuff. But 10 strategic emails to the right people over the course of 6 months can make a world of difference. Volunteering for 2 or 3 weekends over the course of the next year can make a tremendous difference. Donating just $1, to 30 different candidates can make a world of difference. Why? Because you're not just funding their campaign with your dollar. Imagine I had this ready to go. You're not just funding your campaign with your dollar. Can you believe they stamped it? They weren't sure if it was a forgery dollar. Moving on. You're also increasing the little fact sheet they get to print out, which says, here's the number of small dollar donors. Here's the number of actual people that donated to us. You're pushing down the amount of money each candidate that you donate to gets per donation, and that's a good thing. When they want to show their credit, when they want to show their credentials for whether or not the people are behind them, they will say, look at this, our average donation is $5, and we had 1 million people donate that amount of money to us. Which means we got a $5, which means we have a $5 million budget on which we can run this campaign. That is the kind of effect you will have. But my larger point, your efforts will be cumulative. and try to remember that as you engage in this war of attrition with, billionaires and their henchmen.
Put forward the argument that in some cases you need to have the power of the minority protected if the shoe was on the other foot. And Democrats were in the minority across the board. Might they want to have at least some say in how things are governed?
I would ask, is it partisan to think that the person who wins the most votes should win office? In no other domain of our life do we think majorities shouldn't govern. But we have this one single carve out, in our political system where and so, sometimes the Electoral College has benefited Democrats, sometimes it's benefited Republicans. Sometimes the filibuster benefits Democrats, sometimes it benefits Republicans. The point is that it's unfair. And so that's why we have a set of proposals that we think ultimately will help American democracy as a whole.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. So, why? What was the answer they came up with? Well, Leah Miller, I think, gives a better breakdown of this. We'll view that later. But what I gathered from that segment on CNN was simply because they have a hold of us. Why does the U.S. still have minority rule? Because the minority who is ruling doesn't want to give it up. That's it. Understand, when they say minority rule, it's not rule by minorities. It's not, for example, that what's a kind of Christian that's not particularly that's not the majority. It's not because, let's say, Pentecostals are in charge. That doesn't make it minority rule. It's when Pentecostals are in charge despite the fact that the majority don't want them to be in charge and voted for them not to be in charge, but they wound up being in charge anyway. Except it's not just Pentecostals. It's a group of conservatives which have been plaguing us for my whole life, and when I crack open a history textbook, which is the thing that they desperately don't want you to do, it turns out ever. They have been plaguing us forever. They have been making the country worse forever, since its inception. They started off saying, we ought to stick with the king, those conservatives. And then they said, oh, we ought to have slaves still. And then they said, oh, we should never say there can be a maximum amount of hours that an employee is asked to work. And then they said, weekends, you should never have weekends. Life is for serving the rich. It's not for enjoying. And then they said there should be no homosexuals. And then they said there should be no trans. And then they said interracial marriage, it must be kept illegal. And on and on. And tomorrow they'll have a new terrible idea. And they'll be able to make that terrible idea into law. Unless we do the work of multiple election cycles, which we have already begun, by the way. And we eventually change the very Constitution to get rid of the corrupt system that filth uses to bother the rest of us. It'll be a long fight. But the good news is, it's a fun fight. Because the path to victory involves many smaller victories. And each one of those is incredibly energizing. Tell you, I'm enjoying just talking with y'all. Let's check out, the chat. Domenico, good to see you. Oh gosh, Gulf Coast Grit. The best way to ensure an outcome you want is to focus on the process and not solely the goal. Excellent. Yes, one foot in front of the other. Can't get discouraged if you don't win it all right up front. Yes, sir. Preach it, brother. Gulf Coast Grit. I don't get down by what happens out there. It's done. Anytime you get discouraged, just think, I know this music. Time to change the beat. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Wholeheartedly agreed. And it's good to see you, Domenico, by the way. I'll give you a heads up. This is going to be a very different stream. We're going long for sure. And I am just giving my thoughts on a couple of news items that I've been looking at. James Lawson, love your streams. Oh, I'm delighted. Anti-corporatist. He's a coal mine owner. Dirty coal, shaking my head. Fair enough. Oh, I see. I'll read it with the correction. The anti-corporatist. Actually, he's a coal mine owner that has especially dirty coal that when he was governor, he granted himself a waiver to burn in his power plant. Of course. Groove Dragon, I see you have written a tune, and I will not disgrace it by attempting to sing it. I just saw that I got $5. I got to see who did that. Styx Dragon. At What You Can Do. Shade and I love the show and the community. Oh, heck yeah. We are about to head out for an appointment. Love to all. Oh, Styx, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed when y'all called in, both to my show and the letter hack. That was cool. We will do more of those for sure. And enjoy the appointment. I hope it's a good one. I don't see where that money came. Where on earth? Hold on. Oh, there we go. Scott Ward, I challenge you to read the books Understanding Media, The Extensions of Man by Marshall McLuhan, Future Shock by Alvin Toffler, and Status Seekers. Wait a minute. Hold on. I'm not reporting that. I'm copying that. You're going to get a little heart there, too, because I have the ability to do that. Scott Ward, I will take a note of that. I am looking for books to read. Incidentally, hold up. I'm going to give you guys in the Wicked Senate something here. If you prefer audiobooks and you believe that useful content ought to be free, I agree. This is the channel I just put in the chat is a collection of audiobooks that are free, including Norse mythology, The 7 Habits of, I'm going to read it in my dumb voice, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, The History of Money by Jack Weatherford, Archer's Voice, The History of Money Again, Part 2, Self-Discipline, The Neuroscience, Improvement of the Mind by Isaac Watts, and so on and so forth. Look, there's just The Art of Money Getting by P.T. Barnum. What? Oh. Anyway, it's a collection of audiobooks, and there it is, free. Enjoy it. Ooh, Groove Dragon. A group of dragons is called a thunder. We bring the thunder. Hell yeah. I love it, Groovy. Oh, man. I am trying a couple of things. I'm gonna bust it. I'm gonna let you in on the secret sauce right now. So September is the weird month. We've said that. September 23, we're doing Wicked Fight Night, the wrestling inspired debate stream. I'm also trying something else. Pixel Progressives is just humorous content that I found from other progressive podcasters, animated as efficiently as I can, and with a little spice tossed in to make it flow. I don't know how I'm going to monetize it. First of all, I don't think I don't know. I get a warning flag in my soul somewhere for associating that kind of humor with things that also discuss like the extrajudicial killing of a citizen of a country I live in, or hell, anybody. I don't know how I feel about it. But the filthy businessman who lives in my soul, the greedy wretch who I really am deep down and am constantly trying not to be, needs an outlet. And to that end, I would very much like to start making Pixel Progressives regularly, and I will put it up for channel members regularly because it's not actually important. It's just a way to blow off stream. But I want people to not have to pay for it as well. When you're a channel member, I want you to be paying for convenience. You like this channel so much that it's convenient to you to get all the content in one place. And that is going to be a big part of being a channel member. That said, here's the plan for Pixel Progressives. I am going to shop it out to other channels, just as though I was Seth MacFarlane trying to get Family Guy sold to play on Adult Swim or Fox or TBS or whatever. But the goal is to give progressives who are starting out and who can't devote their whole day to making content, but are trying to get monetized or are already monetized, content to put up on their channel and hopefully get a bunch of plays. I will put up a poll as I play for you an episode of Pixel Progressives that was just done. I will play it on the live stream, but just a heads up, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna re-upload it, or I'm not gonna make it available to watch for free on the channel. But the poll I'm gonna put up is this: should I only send Pixel Progressives to the channels that I did the Pixel Progressives on, as like, hey, here's some fan art I made of you. If you want to play it, it's yours to do what you please with. Or should I specifically pursue that idea of finding channels like, for example, Rebecca Azor's channel, where she's still in the process of trying to get the watch hours and yada yada to get it started. That'll be the poll. I'll put it up. Take your time, think it over, and in the meantime, here is Pixel Progressives. Crowder and Mickey betray their spouses.
Oh my God. Steven Crowder, the gift that keeps on giving, really. I mean, I could listen to him cry about his divorce all day.
He's only angry because it like became very like a very public thing that his wife left him, because I mean, otherwise I just don't understand what his gripe is. He obviously didn't love the woman. And like, what is...
Well, his whole shtick in his early career, like there's a bunch of articles on Fox News' website. His whole shtick was the married guy, Mr. Married. If you're not married, there's something wrong with you.
He wrote an article also about how both him and his wife were waiting until marriage to have sex, and that was like a whole thing. Which, why?
That Mickey Mouse meme where he's like going to the camera and going, "Remember, kids, this will be important later." Oh boy, huh? I wish Texas went as hard as Georgia, where like, yeah, no, we allow cameras in the courtrooms. Actually, we televise them bitches. Like, it is on the one hand kind of beneath me to do like court TV coverage. Like, one of my least favorite things, transparently, to do at TYT was when we were covering impeachment hearings. That being said, I would eat all of my words and then some if we were going to publicize the Steven Crowder. Not because I want to, I mean, I kind of half take that back because I don't want to make Steven Crowder's wife, who is a private person, and her kids like go through any more public scrutiny. Yeah. But anything that gives me like content for Steven Crowder, like giving more of the L's that he already has, but like showing the kind of person he is, especially like truly in contrast to not only the supposed values that he supposedly like lives with, but how he judges people, how he has created his own content empire, which is probably going to be cut in half due to the no fault divorce rules. But he's created his own content empire based on attacking people and criticizing people for their moral codes, for their guidelines, for their faults. I'm like, Sorry, buddy. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
I mean,
Hate
he's
the
like an
game.
exceptionally homophobic man who has publicly admitted that he struggled with bisexuality in college. Like, it's like things like that that are so infuriating about fucking Steven Crowder. Also, I know a lot of people, you know, in the industry. He's been cheating on his wife quite a bit for quite some time with a wide variety of folks. Like,
really
is what I've heard. Like, so I mean,
Ooh.
for him to like be on his like moral high horse, I can't stand the guy. I fucking can't. I actively wish for horrible things to happen to that guy. He deserves everything.
In the words of
that's
Alex
life.
Jones, politically.
Politically.
I will say, Dan, you did put into my head this like Mickey Mouse type Steven Crowder character who presents himself as moral and good like Mickey Mouse does, but he's also like secretly like fucking Daisy on the side and
Different universe, just like
it's like, yeah, it's I don't know if I can do
fuck that Minnie Mouse bitch. She don't even put out. Now Daisy, let me tell you something about Daisy.
Kids,
Dan.
make sure. Kids, wait, make sure you wait till marriage, kids. Now, Daisy, get your little duck ass in here. Minnie's not with Clarabelle.
Most cancelable episode of Leftist Mafia.
God damn it, we should have gotten married at the Disneyland in Anaheim because the California's a fucking no-fault divorce state. Now I'm stuck with this mini bitch for my life. I'm not gonna give that rat bitch the fucking half of my wealth.
Not that
Goofy, get in here and take your sack tap right now.
Sack taps for all, Yeah. Matt, I will say, and I will echo what a lot of folks have said in chat, but your Mickey Mouse is like devilishly good. Like, it's
It is.
very
Yeah,
good.
I think it's the one. I think it's the one impression I do good because my kids.
Oh, don't do
I
that
watch a lot of
version
Mickey
it for
Mouse.
them.
I do a lot of Mickey Mouse. We watch a lot of
Matt,
Mickey
you are
Mouse.
not allowed to be that wholesome after the debauchery that has just occurred.
Right. Talking about Daisy bringing her duck ass over here and then being like, yeah, I do this for my kids.
No, not that version. Right. I do a Mickey Mouse impression. Yes.
Matt Bender says Wu-Tang's for the children.
Take us for the kids.
Oh man. Listen. I guess I just ruined any chance I ever had. What might have had to voice a Disney character. Right.
Didn't quite have the transition down, but yeah, you get the idea. Obsessive audio. This is awesome. Oh, all right. Excellent. I'm glad you guys like it. My dogs are goth. Oh, you guys are loving it. Good. Good. Mars Falcon. I love the crossed out Lek change to Binder. Yeah, that's a deep cut for sure. Sonia B, that's great, Jake. Keep them as your own, but do share with the subjects. Put them out on your stream and then in their own tab on your channel. Made me smile. See, I like that. I like that idea, but I think instead of my own tab on the channel, we're ending this poll. I think instead of my own tab on the channel, I'm going to follow that basic prescription, especially since the poll is decided. But I'm going to switch it from my own tab on the channel to people that are trying to get that money. Because in September, we've experimented with essentially doing Twitch raids, but on YouTube, and it's been incredibly successful. But what's the point of saying you guys should support these folks unless I'm willing to tangibly also put in the work, support these folks? So why not? We had the poll come in, and it is pretty clear. 75% say subjects of the animation too. So that means I'll send this to Binder. I'll touch it up a little bit, send it to Binder, as well as some small channel, and I'm going to have you guys vote on who you want it to be. I'm not sure in what capacity, but you guys will decide who deserves to get a little extra content. let me actually think about that. I don't want to also put them in the position of feeling like they have to put a dirty cartoon on their on their channel, or you'll be angry with them. I don't want that. My dogs are goth. The higher profile subjects might bring awareness to what you're doing. I also said send to both. Yeah, that makes sense. And Groove Dragon, watch out. Disney is litigious as. That's true, but I ain't scared. Come get me. Come on. Here, they can sue me for all of the money I have. And what's going to happen is we'll show up in court and they're going to feel real bad about it. I'll be like, all right, hold on. I have this dollar that they had to stamp to make sure that it was real, a genuine dollar. And if Disney really wants to come at me for it, come on, let's dance. I'll do a big I'll waste our time in court. I'll do a big ridiculous thing of it. In fact, I cannot think of better advertisement for this channel than getting sued by a gigantic soulless corporation. My word. I'm starting to like this idea. Somebody tell Disney I'm fucking with them. Let's boogie. My dogs are goth. In continuing your streak of good advice, you did. I think you've seen when I've gone over and dog sat for my parents, and despite the significantly less energy put into background, the internet connection's pretty decent. I might toddle over to the family residence on Saturday just so we can do the wrestling stream without without a random interruption, because I lose internet in a tiny hovel that I moved into. Oh God. I tell you, I do hope these days are looked fondly back upon as the days when we were just starting out and things were kind of rough, instead of looked fondly back upon as the days when we were just starting out and things were kind of rough, and we didn't know that they were always going to be that way. Ooh, judgment proof. Yes, sir. Groove Dragon, I love it. Tinkerbell, wear 3 ties. Yeah. Yes. Oh, Sonia B, Binder, Ravana, and Dan from the internet. 100%. Yes. My dogs are goth. Go in with a crutch like Tiny Tim. For sure. I'll guilt trip him. Yeah. You definitely should. It's too important. For sure. Although I do also like the idea that if I'm essentially playing the ref in this thing. So imagine I probably shouldn't be excited about this, but imagine the drama if the ref effing gets disconnected for 5 minutes or whatever, and the heel decides, oh, we're going to play with this. I'm going to hit him with the folding chair. I'm just going to start saying untrue things and rattling them off, and no one can do anything about it. I'm just gonna rip the mic out of the stand and start going on a rant because there's no one here to stop me. I like the drama. I gotta tell you, I like it. There is serious stuff to go to, and I would like to talk about it. Oh, the anti-corporatist. Well, Ron Perlman has appeared on TYT. Sigh. Look, what was TYT 3 years ago in the cultural zeitgeist? I would say 3 years ago, TYT was still a pretty well-respected organization. Do they have issues now? Yes. But they also still have good content now. Like, TYT Investigates, I think, is a genuinely useful thing to watch. I think they make great content. So Ron Perlman, my only point here is that Ron Perlman going on it, that I still think he gets credit for being a true G, you know, for being he's a man of the people. He's been around for a while though. Don't expect him to have heard that Anna Kasparian went off and did this, or Cenk Uygur did that, or he's agreed to be on what is seen as a progressive show, and I'm delighted by that. Now maybe we'll get him on on What You Can Do. Hell, that's one of the few famous people that I'd say there's not a zero chance of, because he has been front and center for the kind of movements that we follow real close here, including basically any strike. Because hell yeah, power to the people. Hold up, we got something for you to see. Oh yes, it's that good stuff, folks. You know, this channel started with one main political topic that we harped on again and again, because over here we're big believers that repetition is important. There's a hell of a lot happening, and if you hear about something only once, that's probably not enough to retain the necessary information. That topic was that Donald Trump's a damn criminal. Now, we've since switched to the Republican Party is a criminal organization. And that is, let me just see, what's that loud internet sound coming in? Oh, yeah, that's the facts. However, doesn't mean that we shouldn't enjoy the downfall of people who need to fall down. To that end, Wicked Foxy Dragon's future ex-husband, Brian Tyler Cohen, recently put out some news, which I think I know who he's talking about. And if you haven't heard, you're going to want to hear this.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown. So, Glenn, we've got some news here with major implications for Trump's classified documents case. He reportedly...
Oh, Glenn Kirshner. Hold on. Yeah. Documents case. It's going to be good. Don't worry. But I can't concentrate unless I address this. Glenn Kirshner, look at you. What did you get a tan? Did you change your settings on the camera a little bit there? He's looking fine, right? He's well put together. All right. Major breakthrough in the documents case. What is it, folks?
He wrote to-do lists for his assistant, Molly Michael, on White House materials with visible classified markings on them, because apparently one man's classified documents is another man's Post-it notes. Can this be used against him in his federal trial in Florida?
Oh, it can be and will be. And this reporting is jaw-dropping because this former executive assistant, Molly Michael, who reportedly was with Trump since 2018, transitioned with him down to Mar-a-Lago when he left the presidency. Boy, there is some blockbuster evidence that we are now learning about that she provided to the FBI and to the federal prosecutors. For example, when Donald Trump knew that the FBI was going to be interviewing Miss Michael about the boxes, she quotes Donald Trump as telling her, "You don't know anything about the boxes." If that is not some straight up mob talk, I don't know what is. But
hold on. Again, that face is how I felt when hearing about Molly Michaels. Good golly, Miss Molly. Trump's thoroughly. Help me out here, because you guys are significantly more culturally educated than I could ever hope to be. What is that Busta Rhymes song that's like ha 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 ha? Like the beat is just Busta Rhymes enjoying himself saying ha for a while. Imagine I could remember the name of that song and I had the forethought to clip it and play it right here in your head. And then in your mind palace, this stream will be what I wished I would have done for it. Anyway, Trump's fucked. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Trump's fucked. This is what we have been saying will happen. Didn't take a tremendous amount of predictive power. I think everybody, if you're a progressive who engages in a lot of online analysis, then you will have heard a lot of people saying this. The dominoes are falling. When one person flips, everybody else who might flip goes, "Oh, I should flip." I know I'm not important to Donald Trump because nobody is important to Donald Trump except Donald Trump. I'm flipping because this dude expects me to go down for him. And despite the fact that he thinks he can make people do that, he sure can't. Flipping like flapjacks, I love it. Break it down, Glenn Kirshner, with your fine ass.
But it is so deeply incriminating.
Now, I want to focus on that moment in particular. When Trump did tell her, "You don't know anything," could that moment in particular, what could that moment in particular mean in this trial?
Looks like a
You know, it
majestic
means
eagle.
so much to prosecutors, Brian, because one, it shows that Donald Trump knew what he was doing was wrong and he was trying to cover it up. Not only was he trying to cover it up, which proves his consciousness of guilt. There can be no mistaking that he thought he was lawfully possessing these government documents, because if he was, he would not have had to tell his executive assistant, "You tell the FBI you don't know anything about the boxes." But it is an incriminating twofer because it can also serve as the basis to bring a witness tampering charge. Now, we don't know if additional charges will be added by Jack Smith, but it sure feels like they could be based on this evidence, this revelation. Because when you tell a witness who is about to be interviewed by the FBI about your crimes, don't tell them what you know. That is heartland witness tampering. So, you know, whether we will see more charges brought or whether Jack Smith will just exploit this directly incriminating evidence at trial remains to be seen.
Well, it's clear that this would be directly incriminating evidence, but I guess how admissible is everything? Because, you know,
want to thank the Anti-Corporatist and Groove Dragon. A collective effort here. Groove Dragon got the specific. It's Woo-Ha, Got You All in Check song by Busta Rhymes. Why, that's quite correct. I just had a very quick gander, and it was a delightful background to these two breaking it down. Yes, that is the song. Woo-Ha, we got Trump all in check. Back to it with both of these dapper gentlemen.
In what sense is this just her word against his, or on the flip side, is this a home run? Because when you have a witness with firsthand testimony, you assume in trial that they're telling the truth and you defer to what they're saying.
Yeah, this is, if not a home run, it's a pretty strong triple. It's probably an in the park home run, because when you have a witness with no apparent axe to grind against Donald Trump, I mean, she left with him from the White House. She continued to work for him down at Mar-a-Lago. Doesn't seem like she's an angry Democrat, as Donald Trump is always calling his critics. And that person provides direct, firsthand, incriminating information out of the mouth of the defendant. You know, I think we toss around the term he said, she said. First of all, in Donald Trump's trial, there will be no he said, because he cannot testify. If he testifies, you know, that would be the final nail in his coffin with respect to guilty verdicts. So it will be she said, and he is not even going to be in a position to rebut it. Now, his attorneys might try to knock down her credibility by digging up.
Hold up. Let's appreciate what a devastating thing that is. Now, I realize that Trump voters don't really care about the truth. That's a reality we're going to have to deal with. But Lady Justice sure does. And the fact that Trump is unable, he cannot not take the stand in his own defense is devastating. It's just devastating. That is, let me center a little bit. That is not something. I understand that most criminal defendants are advised, probably in some capacity, to not testify. But if you can't, because the simple act of opening your mouth keeps putting you in legal jeopardy? Oh. Well, his mouth has been open and flapping for a long, long time. He's felt real confident that the legal system is incapable of holding him to account for anything. I know I've been partying, let's say, quite a lot lately. I just really want to stress to you that now is the time when you can, if you're in this business. If you're watching, you have a lot longer than I. But these are the good times. These are the good times. I mean, hell, I don't have to say might. There are going to be things that we're going to have to be ready to act quick on. We're going to have to worry about the terrorists this guy inspires, and yada, yada, yada. Okay. But can't be denied that 1 year ago, not that long ago, folks, there was no sign whatsoever that there was going to be any justice at all. And the thing we were saying is, if we can just get that mother in a courtroom. Well, now he's going. And his secretary is she's got the receipts, and she's not willing to lie on his behalf.
Whatever dirt or manufacturing, whatever dirt they might be able to find on Miss Michael. But boy, it feels like it is so corroborative of so much else we know that, it just sort of builds on itself. There are other statements that are related in the reporting, like Donald Trump telling her, listen, you need to help spread the word that there are no more boxes. And Ms. Michael said, but there are more boxes. And lots of people here at Mar-a-Lago know it, Mr. President. So, this is so dramatically incriminating. And if Miss Michael proves to be, a credible witness, a reliable person when she's testifying, this is devastating.
Just kind of building on that a little bit, can you explain what hearsay is? Because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about when you can believe what someone says and when you can't.
So hearsay is technically
Wow, that sucks. I just want to give praise to Brian Tyler Cohen again. He is a great interviewer. The question is... Oh, it's my mic. Okay, well, anyway, it was a great question. I appreciate it, and I want to give Brian Tyler Cohen the due praise for asking, what is hearsay? Okay, I'm going to fix my mic off camera, but Glenn Kirshner, give us the breakdown and why it's important to know for this upcoming trial.
technically defined as an out-of-court statement. That means a statement made out of court that is introduced as evidence in court to prove the truth of the substance of the statement, right? So let's run this to ground. If I were to testify about what other people said outside of court, I would not be allowed to offer that testimony because it would be hearsay, with one important exception. Anything said out of court by the defendant who is on trial is non-hearsay. It's an exception to the hearsay rule. It's called a statement of a party opponent. So anything Donald Trump said outside of court, a witness like Miss Michael can come in and testify about it, and it is not hearsay. However, an important footnote to that, Donald Trump's lawyers cannot introduce into evidence his statements. That's defined as hearsay. It's only when a party opponent, in other words, the prosecutor tries to put the statements of the defendants into evidence, that it is non-hearsay. That is a real benefit to the way the rules of evidence are drafted. And that's why everything out of Donald Trump's mouth that's incriminating can be introduced as evidence by Jack Smith, but nothing that he says that is exonerating, that is helpful, like I declassified documents with my mind, none of that can see the light of day inside the courtroom because his attorneys aren't allowed to present it.
So when Molly Michael comes into court and kind of reveals what Donald Trump said to her, does the court assume that she's telling the truth because otherwise she would be opening herself up to perjury charges?
The court assumes nothing about the credibility of witnesses. It is completely within the province of the jury to make credibility assessments. They will eyeball every single witness. They'll assess what they're saying. They will watch their demeanor, their body language, the way they communicate. They will see whether what they're testifying to is supported by or contradicted by other evidence, written communications, emails, text messages, and prior statements that Miss Michael may have made. For example, if she confided in a friend after Donald Trump told her, you don't know anything about the boxes the FBI is about to ask you about, that statement that Miss Michael makes, if her credibility is attacked, it can come in as a prior consistent statement. That's another exception to the hearsay rules. There are as many exceptions as there are prohibitions to the hearsay rules. So, no, that is entirely up to the jury to make that call. Either a witness is credible or is not credible. Either they're going to use their testimony to convict the defendant, or they're going to discard it because they don't believe that the witness is telling the truth.
Okay. And it's sad that I have to ask this, but is there any way that Judge Kennan could mess with Molly Michael's ability to testify so as to help the Trump team?
Another great question. And let's be real. Cannon is looking for an opportunity to help Trump. Why? Because there are two futures, and she knows it. One future, the Führer takes power and starts the new Reich, in which case she wants to be one of the Führer's favorite. And she also knows that if she plays it right, she can help Trump fail to allow him to get away with, stealing from you and me. Or rather, fail to, prevent any punishment for that. And not get punished by you and me. That sucks. What do we do about that? Nothing. It's what makes us the good guys. If anything, we take pride in that fact that we will create an America which is safe enough to defy our will. Good. Now, that being said, let's not have any illusions about who she is and what she is going to try to do, what she has already tried to do. Make sure she knows we're watching. And if she steps out of line, if she pushes it too far, oh God, we're going to know. And she will have risen as high in her career as she will ever go, because we will never forget her. We will never allow anyone we elect ever again to raise her up. And if she manages to get shoved through the cracks by a dying political organization and crime family called the Republican Party, the very first people we elect after she gets raised up will have a priority of pushing her right back down. Because she does not belong in a position of power. But that said, understand that she knows that there is great reward for helping Donald Trump if he manages to retake power. And there is no punishment that will be had for trying and failing to help him, so long as she plays very strictly by the rules. And that's what we watch, to make sure she does her corruption within the rules that allow her to yada, yada, yada.
Based on the reporting we know about Miss Michaels, what she said, her status as a Trump executive assistant, there is nothing Judge Cannon can do to shut down the testimony of a witness who has sharply incriminating statements by the defendant who is on trial. I know we are all apprehensive about the way Judge Cannon might insert herself into the trial to Donald Trump's advantage. Goodness knows she's done it before, but there really is nothing that she can do to shut down the testimony of Miss Michael.
And as of right now, I know that another issue for everybody is that we're expecting to
be continued, you beautiful otter. Environmental Coffee House, hello. And hey, you're never late. You arrive precisely when you mean to. The Emo Dragon, hello. Good to see you. Good to see you. Pinkerbell, the Ken Paxton trial went deep into what is and isn't hearsay. True. Pinkerbell, she's eyeballing a Supreme Court nomination. Oh, for sure. That is something we must ensure never happens. She's already demonstrated that she does not have the judgment for that court. Yeah, and I also want to say, Environmental Coffee House, if you're going on at 9, I might be wrapped up by then. But if I'm not, what we're doing tonight is a weird stream, and it's designed intentionally to be. So my heart shall not break if you got to go do your thing too. Remember, when we are on at the same time, we are growing the progressive community. There is no shame in that. And also remember, we make the majority of our views from VOD content. You will get 95% more views on your VOD than you will on your live stream. It's just the way it works. So you will not be hurting me, is all I'm saying. And folks, if you want to go check out their live stream, think of it like, crazy as it might sound, TV back in the day. You can flip between channels. You can say hi to either. It's all good. Plus, by just talking in here now, you have made my stream more visible. I can't thank you enough. But I can try. Thank you. All right, so let's finish this breakdown. I love Brian Tyler Cohen's ability to look like a Renaissance painting frequently.
To see more delays happen in this trial so as to push that May 2024 date farther out. Is there anything that would suggest that we will see a delay in this trial as of now?
You know, I do have the sense, based on the reporting, that Judge Cannon has been slow walking some of her rulings, but thus far she has not tried to alter the May trial date. So, you know, as of right now, it's still on track to go to trial in May. Again, if I had to bet my dollar, that's my betting limit, I'm not a high roller, I would probably put the buck on the trial date slipping, not actually proceeding in May, but Judge Cannon finding reasons to grant motions to continue the trial date, which will inevitably be filed by Trump's team.
Okay, and finally, let's end with this. You did bring up the idea of Donald Trump testifying at this trial.
I got to touch on that a little bit. Just a itty bitty little bit. Notice what he was saying there. She will try to find ways to help Donald Trump by delaying this trial. Try to find ways. As in, the thing to be on the lookout for is that she will be searching for ways to let Trump get away with the crime, or to help Trump's political aims, or to help Trump pursue whatever it is he wants to do within the rules. And you can understand who she is based upon that. What did we say? She is investing with her corruption into one future where Donald Trump becomes the Führer. And she is at the same time being careful not to overinvest, because, and this is where you can take a little bit of heart, because she is safe in the future that we control so long as she follows the law. And that tells you a lot about the character of the two parties that are in control right now. And I cannot think of a finer endorsement for the Democrats than that. I look forward to a day when we have something better than the Democrats. I'm trying to work with you to help build that. I'm trying to make the Democrats the opposition. But until that happens, that's the team we play for. And it's not satisfying that Judge Cannon views a future where we are in control as one where she's safe, but understand that she will be safe so long as she follows the rules. That means that even the villains understand the truth of who these people are on both sides.
Do you expect that Donald Trump would be well served by testifying at any of his impending trials?
No, Donald Trump cannot be placed under oath, swear to tell the truth. I mean, after being asked his name, I would be dubious about whether he could answer any other question truthfully. We've seen some snapshots, right, of deposition testimony that he's given previously, and it's been an absolute train wreck for him and his credibility. So I don't think, and I think he's a coward at his core. I don't think there's any way he's going to want to sit up in front of 12 citizens sitting in a jury box as the conscience of the community, judging his credibility. Because I got to tell you, Brian, cross-examination by a prosecutor of Donald Trump would be the highlight of that prosecutor's career. And I think any prosecutor would do it for free if given the opportunity.
And you look at how he incriminates himself even when he's not on trial. I mean, he spoke with Meet the Press this weekend, and he said it was all his decision to move forward with all of the events that he's currently on trial for in Washington, D.C.
He actually took away a defense he might have otherwise had.
Was that the advice of counsel defense?
It's the advice of counsel defense. It's a beautiful thing. He could have said, well, I was relying on the advice of counsel when I, bought into the fake elector scheme, or when I was being told that the election was rigged and that there was lots of fraud undermining the election's results. And when I was being told that Mike Pence really had the constitutional authority to just toss out the electoral votes and install me for a second term. I was just relying on the advice of counsel, what my attorneys were saying. And I use a more relatable example of if I'm filling out my tax returns and a tax attorney or a tax preparer says, yeah, Glenn, you can take that deduction. So I do. And then the IRS comes calling and they say, Glenn, you're not allowed to take that deduction. What do I say? Advice of counsel. My tax lawyer, my tax preparer told me I could. That is actually a legitimate, viable defense in the criminal law to some offenses. Donald Trump went on air with Kristen Welker and said, I wasn't really relying on counsel. I was relying on my own instincts. Well, guess what? There's no such thing as advice of your own instincts defense. So Donald Trump just took away another potential defense his lawyers might have been able to use at trial.
And something tells me it's not the last one. So for anybody watching, we'll obviously stay on top of this stuff. If you
etc. etc. Hopefully I have the right thing. I surely did. Oh, look at that. My dogs are goth. Enjoy listening. And thank you for chatting with us. Pinkerbell. Oh, well, never mind then. Oh, let me jump back up. Enjoy the changeover to well-maintained roads. Okay. Let me instead I see interesting chat. I want to go into it. But since I'm recording a segment, let me put the cap on that. Trump is fucked. He's screwed. He has zero chance of somehow displaying that he didn't break the law, because he very clearly broke the law. At least I think, based on what I've seen so far, based on the words he has said. He can't shut the up. He refuses to listen to lawyers who are begging him to shut the up. If you've never been a ne'er-do-well, or you don't have family that practices law, nobody's a court reporter, nobody's a lawyer, nobody's a judge in your family. I'll let you in on the bane of every lawyer, and that's a client that won't shut the up. You can be totally in the right with your case and still have a client talk their way out of a victory. And if your client actually did the thing, but you're still defending him anyway, let's even put you in the nicest light, it's because you believe everybody has a right to fair counsel, competent counsel, and yada, yada, yada. The worst thing in the world is a motor mouth for a client. It is literally the kind of thing that makes people give up their law career, a well-paid job, and just switch. You'll usually hear them say something like, "Well, I do contract law now," or "Oh, well, I'm just an arbiter now. I don't argue cases in court anymore." The thing that burns them out is loudmouth clients. Almost every time, almost every single time. That's how devastating it is for a case. Trump is the ultimate loudmouth client. And even worse for him, he appears to be guilty as sin. We'll see. We have to hear it out in court and all of that. I'm just saying, from what I've seen so far, good God. I look forward very much to the next 8 or so months as Trump just gets his ass whipped in a court of law. Good, he's got this whipping coming. Oh, let's see what the Wicked community has to say. Trump's mouth, says Rextrek, and then just a series of explosions. Totally. Pinkerbell, I don't know how his lawyers haven't all quit. Like, what a joke. Yeah, truly. I don't know. Mars Falcon, amazing how obviously guilty a person can be and will go to his grave never having served a single day in a prison cell. Not one. And that's in reference to Pendulous Dragon. The question is, will he go to jail? Maybe. I can't definitely answer that. And also understand all the people that will claim to know for sure. Let me try that again. All the people that will claim to have some grand insight into this, they aren't necessarily lying to you about their insight, but they could still be wrong. One of the major things is that, and part of the reason why when you're in front of a microphone, at least, whatever you call yourself, it's important to remind folks over and over that the trial matters. It's not just because the person might be innocent. It's because we literally don't know all the facts yet. And if you were to ask me right now what I think, I would say I think he will go to jail. I think however you define jail, will he lose his ability to travel from place to place at free will? Or will he be required to stay in one location assigned by the government? I think that probably will happen, based on what I've seen. Could be wrong, and other people might disagree with me, and their reasoning could be spot on, because my reasoning is based on what we haven't seen yet. What we are aware of sure makes him look guilty. Hey, he might lay out a case in court that makes me have to say, "Oh, Jesus, I was wrong. We actually just need to change our laws so in the future that behavior is no longer considered legal." But it turns out, despite the overwhelming evidence that I had seen, there was even further evidence that demonstrates that he was totally right. Yada, yada, yada. I think it's more important that we get the federal government to officially declare that Trump's behavior was illegal. That, I think, is the most important thing. How we punish a 70-whatever-year-old man, It will also be important, but it will not be the most important thing. The most important thing is that we say that the behavior we've seen is not allowed. And also, we throw a bone to the right wingers here, lest they think that we're just bloodthirsty, and also that we apply those standards then to every president, Joe Biden included, from here on out. Every single president. Anybody else behaves this way, at least they get the same treatment, at a minimum. But will he go to prison? We don't know. Because the culture, really, I know people will say, people who are in the profession will try to defend the various whatever legal professions by saying, well, their reasoning was based on this, that, and the other thing, and it's all very boring, and you have to sit down and listen to a 45-minute. No, it's mostly based off the vibe. That's what I've gathered. It's mostly based off the vibe of the country, and then they find legalese language to phrase it in. But we'll see how the country feels. And it's also, the judges look at, all right, who that is serious in the country, who that actually seems to have their head on their shoulders, feels what way about it. And it's based on the existing biases of the judge and blah, 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 sure. But at the end of the day, the judge is going to understand two things. Number one, their opinion will be public. And number two, they are going to carry that opinion for the rest of their career. They will either have to defend it or denounce it for the rest of their career, if it's a bad one. At the end of that trial, Judge Cannon might fully be in the camp of understanding that Donald Trump will never again be the president. Again, might be. I don't know what the temperature will be. Imagine that next year Trump collapses in the polls. Just not for any reason 4 years ago. And nobody cares about him anymore. Imagine nobody giving a shit about him by the end of his trial. Imagine a less dorky Ramaswamy sweeps the scumbag demographic, and that's the one they care about. Or some other thing happens. It's a crazy world we live in, and a hell of a lot happens all the time. And everything seems like it will be some way forever until it isn't. But something as simple as Donald Trump losing his popularity will drastically affect this. Wicked Foxy Dragon, good to see you. Hi, how are you? And I'm sorry, we're doing a weird style stream. Mike Stead, will he be gagged? I hope so. I hope so. On a replacement? Ooh, to be continued. That's an intriguing question from Wireless Mike. Mars Falcon, maybe. But they have learned 0 lessons from anything to date. Nothing have they learned. Matter of fact, they are even more off the rails now than they were in January 2021. I think it depends on who the they is there. Did MAGA learn anything? Not really. Did MAGA politicians learn anything? Not really. Old-fashioned Republican senators have. Old-fashioned Republican politicians have definitely learned that they don't want to be as friendly with MAGA as they have been. Because MAGA will kill them. It's a lot more common for these folks to speak out. They wouldn't even be having to right now if any of them had courage years back. But yeah, I think they're learning a little bit. Who else is learning? Corporate Democrats. Joe Biden has been one of the most progressive. This is genuinely painful to say. He's had one of the most progressive winning streaks of any president. Yeah, in my lifetime. Now, Joe Biden is a centrist through and through. You might even say he's center-right. in terms of his personal politics. But in terms of what? His support of labor, his actual policies that he's gotten done, if a progressive had gotten those same things passed and told us I would have done better, but look what I had to work with, I would have forgiven them and I would have cheered for them. So I'm obligated to set aside my distaste and cheer for Biden. But Biden, understand, also came into the presidency like, I'm going to work with Republicans. I'm going to do it. We did it, people. I'm going to be a centrist. You know that thing you guys fucking hate. You know what caused all this to start with? I'm going to beg. I'm going to plead. I'm going to look pathetic in order to make Republicans like us, which is the dream. It's the dream. To get the worst people we can find to like us, even if it means that the best people, the hardest working people, the people who are willing to sacrifice for others despise us. That's fine, because we don't give a shit about them. That's who Joe Biden was. But what is he like now? He's embraced Dark Brandon. He's out there cutting advertisements with Marjorie Taylor Greene footage. People are learning. It's just slow and it's pathetic. And we should replace them rather than have leaders that take this long to learn. But we are going to replace them. That's what 2024 is for. And we're going to surprise the hell out of them in the primaries, because a lot of the people that think they can be comfortable can't be comfortable. They are on borrowed time, because we're going to take their damn jobs. The letter hack. Well. I want to get into. I want to ring my gloved fist at somebody, but I would never be able to pull it off because people know I adore your show. Hello. We got two, in my opinion, YouTube royalty here: Letter Hack and Environmental Coffee House. Good to see you both. Obsessive Audio. LOL. So true, Jake. Biden and team didn't get it about current day GOP when he came in. Yes, and it was maddening. Mars Falcon. A centrist is just a person that has no sense of right and wrong. Triangulating between fascists and corporate hacks is a sign of feeble-mindedness. Yeah, I agree. And let me add on to that. A centrist is just another word for a conservative. Doesn't that sound crazy? But you know, when you say centrist in the context of another country, it could mean a lot of things. In the context of the United States of America, a centrist is somebody who compromises between two positions so much that to them, the core, beautiful position is nothing. Doing nothing. Or being a conservative, being slow to change. That's why I think the Democrats are actually very well set up ideologically to be the new conservative party. But they are terrible at being the party that progressives have to work with. Sorry, I just coughed directly into the microphone. If you suffer eardrum damage from that, I will point out that you are welcome to my entire fortune. We wireless mic 100%, Jake. Thank you. Much appreciated. I'll tell you what, I was hoping to go straight through till 9 o'clock. But I'm gonna skip it, in part because I kind of want to see Environmental Coffee House's stream, or maybe pop over and see what Letter Hack is up to. I might lurk a bit. And also because the internet is doing that thing, baby. It's telling me it might be time. Sonia B, hey, what you can do? FYI, Jake. FYI, Jake. Binder streams tonight at 9. First hour is a guest, and then several hours of chat and call in. Get in there and send your animations, son of a gun. All right, you guys. I like doing wild stunts. We're gonna do that. We're going to do wild stunts. I'm going to send Bender the animation right now and try to get it played. This is awfully ballsy, and I really don't want to piss off the guy. So if he doesn't play it, I beg you, don't bother him about it. Don't bother him about it. It's a hell of an ask, especially 10 minutes before the stream, and it's a 5-minute video. Ooh. But I'm going to go do that. Y'all, thank you for joining me. This has been WYCD Wicked, that stands for what you can do. I'll see you next time.